We try to do more and more with less and less time. We turn every moment of every day into a race to the finish line. A finish line we never reach. But decelerating is hard, and for some of us, the easiest ways to slow down is to speed up.
Are spinning and pedals turn, when 100 revolutions occur each minute, that's when we start to listen to our ranting, or cheering, or swearing. When the white noise of the wind in our face drowns out every day's worries. When, with every mile passing by, those to-do lists become less urgent. Because in between all those goals, there's a thing called life that has to be lived and enjoyed. It is time to set goals that mean nothing to anyone else but us. So we keep on riding. To the next corner, to the hill, to the mountain pass. We inhale the impressions, counting the median strips rushing by. Spectators along the road, views flashing and fading. The sensation of cutting through the air. A parade of sensual impression. A meditation on repetition and change. A sun salutation from the south. And in the end of the day, it is a new slow, a good slow, a fulfilled slow. And we know, with every fiber of our muscle and every cell of our body, what it is that made us come here. And why we return.
Hey everybody, it's time to get started with our meeting. Welcome to the Harrisburg Bicycle Club February meeting, and I'm happy that you're here. It would be really great if you could put a little chat in the window or in the chat box so we know who's here, and maybe we can get some talk between everybody. But anyway, so it is now 7 o'clock, so let's get started. Just a couple things. We're going to have Dr. Karnes from Phoenix Physical Therapy here. Unfortunately, her partner, Dr. Fickus, could not make it because of an emergency, family emergency. So he's sorry he's not here. After that, we're going to, after that video, we'll have some more presentations from some of the board members about the activities coming up for the year. And we're trying to just really, as a board, connect with our members in this age of COVID where it's just really, really hard to get together. I'm hoping that soon we'll be able to have in-person meetings. So with no further ado, Dr. Karnes, do you want to, I'm going to introduce you here. Katie, as she once says she could be called, she joined Phoenix Physical Therapy in 2018 as a clinic director and lead physical therapist for their outpatient therapy facility in Harrisburg. Katie's clinical expertise focuses on generalized outpatient orthopedics, including post-surgical conditions and sports and work-related injuries. She is manual therapy certified and currently is in a fellowship for manual therapy, as well as formerly involved in creating and performing injury prevention screenings for student athletes. That's us, right? She's a very social person. Katie also enjoys spending time with family and friends outside of the office, especially partaking in activities such as hiking, skiing, and aerial yoga, which I don't know what that is. That sounds pretty interesting. So, okay, Katie, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. All right. So can everyone see me? Oh, perfect. Okay. Thank you for that introduction. So as Susan mentioned, my name is Katie. And unfortunately, like she said, Doug, my counterpart, had a family emergency, so he will not be in. But I'm very excited to be here and share some fun things with you guys tonight. So first presentation, I'm just going to pull up a few slides to go through, and I'll kind of talk through them. So I'm going to do that now. Let's see if I can. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. All right, let me just see. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so I can't see the chat, but I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. Okay. All right, so today I kind of put together a small presentation to talk about cycling and relating it to the human body. Specifically, we'll get into hips and knees because that's what we were asked to kind of focus on. So just a little bit about who we are. So Doug and I both work for Phoenix Physical Therapy in Harrisburg, as Susan had mentioned. We work in the Lingelstown, Paxtonia area of Harrisburg, for those of you who are familiar with the Harrisburg area. We are both certified in manual therapy, and our treatment philosophy is very much treating the body as a whole and looking at the different components of the movement of the body and trying to break that down and figure out what we can do to help based on that particular person's situation and their needs. At Phoenix, we do offer free consults, which I'll get into later at the end. And lastly, something that kind of sets us apart from maybe some other physical therapy clinics is that you do have a lot of one-on-one time with us. So in our office, it's only Doug and I. Doug and I are the two physical therapists here. We don't have any assistants or any aides. So all of our patients see either of us, which is great because it helps with continuity of care and giving our patients the best outcomes for them. So that's just a little bit about us. Into the presentation. So first I want to talk about maybe some common cycling injury factors. Okay. So the first one is improper bike fit. So obviously, as all of you know, there are many variables that can be adjusted on a bike to ensure, an individual fit. Even if it's small adjustments to the saddle height or the handlebar height, all of these factors can make a difference in avoiding overuse injuries on a bike. Okay. The second one would be poor bike posture or positioning. So once you have the bike properly fitted, you must be able to maintain your body position correctly in the saddle as well to ensure good postural alignment to help prevent injury. The third one would be faulty pedaling mechanics. So a lot of times if you're pushing at higher gears with a lower revolutions per minute, this can actually increase the joint contact forces, which can put increased strain on muscles and tendons, which can ultimately lead to injury. And then number 4 would be training errors. So a lot of times finding that balance between distance and intensity and kind of transitioning in with training, that can also lead to some injuries. And lastly, I put on here, overuse injuries are the most common due to the repetitive nature of cycling. Obviously, there's always that risk and chance of a traumatic injury, such as a crash, which hopefully that doesn't happen. But usually injuries tend to be more of an overuse injury because of the repetitive nature. Okay, so we're going to kind of just focus in on the hip and the knee. These tend to be two of the most common sources of injury for cyclists. So let's start with the hip. All right, so the hip can also be connected to the low back. A lot of times these two go hand in hand, which some people don't realize. But that's usually when you're treating the hip, we also tend to treat the low back as well. So I did list here some different diagnoses that are common for cyclists, But I kind of just wanted to talk about some of the basics. So at the hip, any stress that leads to an asymmetry is what's going to increase your risk for injury, okay? And that's actually at any part of the body, hip, knee, shoulder. If you have an asymmetry in how things are working, it's going to increase your risk for injury. So for example, at the hip, as a cyclist, a lot of times your glute max, which is your big tush muscle in the back, the nice round one, that can be overworked a lot of times, okay? And along with that, your hip flexors, which are in the front of your body, because you're in a seated position for potentially a long period of time, they can become very tight. So you have an overworked muscle in the back and a tight muscle in the front. And then along with this, you have another muscle that kind of sits in the back and the side called your piriformis, which is a rotator muscle. This muscle helps rotate your hip outwards. That's not really used during cycling that much. So a lot of times, because of the position you're in, it can actually tighten as well. So between having the tight muscles in the back or overworked and overworked, and the tight muscles in the front, this imbalance or what we call the asymmetry, along with the increased repetition of a cycling move, can cause the body to break down somewhere, which can lead to some of these diagnoses that I have listed. The body's always going to find a way to compensate for something it can't do by using something else that it shouldn't. So the key is to rebalance out those imbalances. The other thing with the hip too, a lot of times we find is that muscle I talked about that is tightened because it doesn't work that much, that piriformis with cycling, if that gets really tight, that can cause increased pressure as well over your sciatic nerve. And that's the biggest nerve in the body. That's that nerve that runs down the whole leg. So many people don't realize that in most of the population, that nerve pierces through that muscle and runs underneath. So if that muscle is really tight after riding for long periods of time or being on the bike for long periods of time and is not stretched out properly after, over time, that can cause compression on that nerve, which can actually cause some leg symptoms. So a lot of times we find people have symptoms, down their legs, but it's really coming from their back or their hip per se too. So that's just a little bit of a breakdown of a few of the ways that cycling can affect the hip. The other big component of pathology for a cyclist is the knee. So again, the knee performs thousands of repetitions of a singular pedaling motion over and over again. So most of the time, the stress is actually undertaken in what we call the patellofemoral compartment. And what that is basically where your kneecap is. So where your kneecap sits over the bone of your femur, so the thigh bone and the shin bone, that is where most of the stress can be undertaken with cycling, okay? And again, this can lead to those asymmetries. If you haven't noticed a pattern here, asymmetries, imbalances, that will always increase your risk for injury. So I listed a few diagnoses here, kind of like I did with the hip, but I did want to talk about one in particular, and that is the first one I listed, the chondromalacia patella. In fancy words, basically, this just means it's kind of breakdown of the cartilage that's under your kneecap, okay? This happens when your patella, your kneecap, isn't tracking right. So how I like to explain it is think of a train on a train track. So your train is riding along the track just fine, right? Well, let's say, I guess I hope this wouldn't happen, but hypothetically speaking, if it was super windy or something happened and there was outside forces that were affecting the way the train was going on the tracks and it would become off the track slightly. That's kind of how I think of your knee. So your kneecap runs in a groove over these two bones in a track. If over time structures, muscles, tendons around that knee start to tighten or become weak, the forces through that kneecap are going to change, and it can cause that kneecap to just be slightly off kilter off that track. And if you're repetitively moving that knee flexion, extension through the singular pedaling motion, when it's just slightly off the track, at first it might not bother you, but 10, 15, 20, 25 miles later, thousands of repetitions later, the body's eventually going to break down somewhere. And so that then can cause pain, okay? So a lot of times this imbalance comes from a weak or tight quadricep, which is the muscle in the front of the thigh, or a tight IT band, which runs along the outside of the leg, okay? So these outer forces, this imbalance of a weak muscle over here and a tight muscle over here, this imbalance is going to affect the way that that patella or that kneecap runs along the track. And if that is altered, then it will eventually break down and cause pain. So at the knee, the three areas that you can have pain are going to be the front, which is just what we had talked about, that mal-tracking of the kneecap. Okay, a lot of times you're going to feel that pain in the front of the knee, okay? And something that can contribute to this is if your seat saddle may be too low or positioned too far forward. It's going to increase the stress on the front of the knee, okay? Another area that you may feel pain is behind the knee, okay? We call this posterior, the back. So behind the knee, a lot of times that's kind of where your hamstring muscle runs, your calf is at the bottom. This can be if your saddle is actually too high or if your foot is too far forward in the pedal, because you're going to increase in the exertion that you need to pull through, and you're increasing the firing of like your hamstring and things like that. So that can actually cause pain in the back of your knee. And then the last areas would really be the inside or outside of the knee. So this can be, I mean, ideally, like if the toe is pointed at all, any bit inward, it's going to increase the stress on the outside of the knee. And if it's pointed any bit outward, it's going to stress the inside. Also, if you have tight structures, tight muscles on the outside or the inside of the knee, it's also going to potentially increase that stress and cause that knee pain on the inside or outside. So essentially, it's a matter of those imbalances and asymmetries being corrected or fixed to kind of reduce that risk of injury at both the hip and the knee, okay? So I thought this was I know I didn't touch much on, the neck and the shoulders, and we could talk about different things, but I thought that this was an interesting picture because it shows a ways that bike fit can increase your risk of injury. So based on the part of the bike, you can see how it can affect. So we've talked about the seat position being too high or too low, causing different spots for knee pain. But even if you look at the handlebars here, so if the handlebars are too low or too high, it can increase your neck and lower back pain. If they're too short, it can increase also your neck pain, cause some hand numbness. So again, this stresses the importance of proper bike fit and making sure that you are positioned correctly in the saddle to decrease any of those stresses, potential increase in stresses from riding. Okay, so the $1 million question here is, well, how do I prevent these injuries from happening? So the beautiful thing about this is because so many common things are known to happen, you're able to do things to help prevent these overuse injuries. So the first thing that I would suggest is performing a flexibility and a core stabilization routine. So getting into the habit of doing flexibility exercises, mobility exercises, whether they're static stretching or dynamic movements prior to cycling. Usually I recommend a dynamic warm-up. The things that I can think of back in the day, just when I was in school, like this good old Frankenstein's, like things that you're slowly warming up your body, but you're moving, doing it. And then when you're done, your ride, doing something more of like a static stretching routine, like just getting into a flexibility routine. Yoga, Pilates, they're also wonderful options as well. And on top of that, making sure you're really working your core. Your core is the powerhouse of everything in your body. So you really want to make sure that you have a solid core routine to help to prevent these injuries. The other thing I recommend is cross training. So a lot of times I've noticed with certain patients or people I've worked with, if you're doing only one type of activity, so if the only thing you do is cycle all the time, every day, that's the only form of workout you have, a lot of times that can really increase your risk of injury. By cross training, whether it's doing a different activity or adding in light resistance training, that can really help decrease your risk of injury because you're breaking those repetitive movements that your body is doing all the time with the activity. And by breaking those repetitive movements, you're giving those structures a break, essentially, okay? The other thing I recommend is foam rolling. So if we were in person, I would show you in front of you, but foam rolling can be a wonderful thing to do after you're done riding. I would recommend really fully like head to toe type foam roll program. You can foam roll your mid spine, you can foam roll your hips, your quad, your calves, you can foam roll all of that. And what a foam roll does is it helps increase the blood flow and break through any, little bit of adhesion or scar tissue that may be there. And it helps really loosen up that muscle, really helps with flexibility. It digs in there. I always tell my patients, it hurts so good. It's going to feel better after. So I do recommend being on a foam rolling program. So with those things being said, the one thing I had mentioned in the beginning is that at Phoenix, we do offer a one-on-one free consult, which essentially is just a conversation with Doug or I, saying, I have these issues going on. Do you think therapy is something that can help me? And then we decide from there if we think, scheduling you for an evaluation is appropriate. One thing with physical therapy that has really come a long way is a lot of times people think of us as, oh, I go to them once I'm hurt. I go to them once I'm in pain. But really, the way that things are shifting now, while this is true still, there's also a big movement in trying to work on preventative injury. We are movement experts. We know how the body's supposed to work. We know what it does as far as movement patterns and what looks functional versus dysfunctional. So a lot of times we can assess human movement and how people are moving and already decipher if that person has potentially set themselves up, like if their bodies potentially could be injured, I guess I should say. So we can break down movement patterns, and based on how it looks and different strength tests and things like that, we can give our patients and clients things to do ahead of time so they don't injure themselves, or they significantly decrease their risk of a non-contact injury because of overuse or repetition. So that is one thing about our profession that is really taking a hold, is this preventative injury. So, and I think it's a wonderful thing. We've helped so many people establish routines in their lives that so they, can still do the things that they love to do without, with decreasing that chance of getting injured. So basically, if PT is something that you find would help, then we would set up an evaluation. In an evaluation, you see Doug or I one-on-one for a full hour, and we sort of do like a full body evaluation or kind of hone in based on, your goals are and specifically what you're looking to come to PT for. And then from there, we create a treatment plan. And that's something that's customized to each person, and we kind of go from there. So again, it's very flexible, and really up to the patient and their goals. In Pennsylvania, Doug and I both have direct access, which means that we can see patients for physical therapy without a script from the doctor for 30 days. So a lot of times people think or assume they need to see the doctor first, but actually they do not technically. In Pennsylvania, we can treat patients up to 30 days without a script. So at that 30-day mark, either, we transition them to a home program. If they're good, they're doing their own thing, that's wonderful, they don't need us anymore. Or then we kind of contact their primary care doctor and we get a script if we need to continue. But anyway, so you don't need a script to come see us at first. We can see you for an evaluation and at least get you on a program to help if that is something you would be interested in. So here's just a little bit of our information. I will exit out of here to leave this open for questions. I know that Scott wanted to question, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Scott?
There we go. Okay.
So there's some difficulty in capturing some of the comments that are coming in on Facebook. And there was some difficulties in the presentation over on the website, but that's been fixed. So if anyone has any comments, put them into the Facebook feed or into the YouTube link, which is on the website. Susan?
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so the good news about this whole night is that that Katie's presentation will be recorded, so people are going to be able to go back and look at it. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that you can contact her, and she would that be okay, Katie, if they have questions afterwards?
Oh yeah, please. I will leave well, I don't know if I can like post it on here. I can make sure they have access to my email or phone number for the clinic.
Yeah, we could probably do that. There is a question that came in for you. Is there anything you should not do when foam rolling?
Yeah, so the only thing I would say I recommend with that is I would not foam roll your low back. Okay, so foam rolling is great mostly for muscular areas. I do personally use it, and I have patients use it on, here, I'll show you, like the thoracic here, because it tends to be very tight and can help. But so I usually stay clear of the low back, like lumbar down here, and mostly focus on lower extremity muscles. So hip, outside of the hip, the front, the quad, the calf, and the hamstring in the back. But yeah, and obviously you don't want to overdo it. So I always say try to go for 20, 30 seconds at a time. It's not very comfortable for people. So a lot of times people can't tolerate that long, but just I would not do the low back. That's probably my biggest piece of advice with that.
Okay. I did not see anything else from the Facebook questions. The thing about the Facebook, though, guys, is that we don't know who you are because it just comes across as Facebook user. If now that people are able to get on to the web page, we'll be able to see who that exactly is. So you can maybe say, there are a couple of people did put the name in and say who they were. So that would be kind of fun if you could, if you're going to comment again, to put your name in. So okay, the next thing we're going to talk about on our agenda. Oh, thank you very much, Katie. That was great.
Yep, thank you, everybody.
And yes, thank you very much. So we'll get your email out there to them somehow, and then they could perhaps email you questions. We'll maybe send a general forum message out with that information.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Our next speaker is going to be Chris Wright. Chris is going to talk a lot about the ride calendars and any other topics associated with that. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks very much, Susan. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate that. I just have three very quick announcements. The first two are on rides. As you folks know, we did restart club rides on January 30th. That went quite well. We've had lots of folks riding. In fact, I think we've had more people riding this past winter than we have in recent memory. So that's great. We have not had any issues at all that I'm aware of. So thank you to you folks who have been out on the road for doing a great job at that and enjoying your rides. As I think most people know, our normal season starts on April 1st. That's when all of the regular rides start. We have about 25 rides that occur regular during the season. And you may know that we have ride coordinators for each ride. So we have all of those lined up with the exception of 3. We do have ride coordinator positions available for the Hershey Sea ride, which takes place on Monday evenings and Thursday evenings. We also have a ride coordinator slot open for the Friday night social ride, and we have a ride coordinator slot open for the Learning to Linger rides. So we need to fill those slots in order to be able to have those rides. So if you're a ride leader, I would encourage you to consider that. I will say that being a ride coordinator is one of the easier things you can do to help support the club. You are not at all expected to lead a bunch of rides. In fact, many ride coordinators lead just a few rides and have other rides led by people who sign up. Really, the job of a ride coordinator is to make sure that the rides have ride leaders and that those ride leaders are doing whatever they need to do to lead a good ride. Quite often, ride coordinators will mentor or coach some new ride leaders. So if you're interested in those, just give me a holler. Again, it's the Hershey Sea ride, Friday night social ride, and the Learning to Linger rides. And then my last update is on the Three Creek Century. As I think you might have heard, we're pleased to say that we're going to have a live event this year, or at least we're planning to have a live event. You will see a communication on the HBC website that says that our event is to be held on September 19th, 2021. It's essentially just a save the date page. We have it out there so that people can nail down the date. The registration link is not active yet. That will be soon. In most years, there are two other cycling events in central Pennsylvania. They are the Chocolate Tour and the Lancaster Covered Bridge Classic. I was actually on the phone with the coordinators of those rides or those events today. They are both also planning live events. Their events are sooner than ours. I think the Chocolate Tour is August 7 and the Lancaster ride is August 15th. So they have a bit of a nearer deadline. All three of the events, including ours, we will have some contingency planning in terms of COVID precautions, things like that. The Chocolate Tour and the Lancaster ride are doing things a little bit different. Our ride will be fairly similar to what you're used to in the past. We'll leave out of Penn Township. We'll have 3 routes leaving out of that location, plus the South Mountain Challenge and the Cumberland Valley Rail Trail. Our committees are hard at work on the event already. We do have one opening on the committee, which is for the routes coordinator. That's the person who kind of nails down the routes and makes sure that the arrows get painted so you don't take a wrong turn, that kind of thing. If you're interested in that at all, please give us a holler. We have the former routes coordinator, which is Terry Drakbar. He's able to kind of consult, and I'll help out as well. So things are moving along. We're anxious to get some live events this year and to get our regular rides started. And I appreciate all of you going out and having safe and joyful rides. That's it for me, Susan.
Oh, great. Thank you very much, Chris.
Sure. And if folks have questions about rides or any of the things I just covered, put them in the comment section and we'll get to them as we get to the end of the interview.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's just talk about some of the things that we normally do that maybe we slowly can get back to doing. But one of the things that we can't get scheduled this spring is the maintenance clinic. We haven't been able to find any place that can support us outside with bathrooms and lots of parking. And so we made the decision to not hold those. And we're trying to look at other options, like maybe videos, maybe small clinics as the summer goes on. It's, everything's still kind of up in the air. So, so sadly, that's one of the victims of the COVID this year. The Spring Fling is still on. That's going to be the last weekend of April. If you are interested in going, again, go to the website and get the drop-down box under special events, and that'll give you all the information you need. Finger Lakes, we're still working on that one. We're still waiting to hear back from the college. I'm guessing we're not going to get any news until we get closer to the end of April on that. So, but just kind of keep those dates open. It's June the 10th through the 13th with an option of 2 days earlier. We are going to have our picnic at Fort Hunter, though, on July 25th, so keep that date open. And the banquet is another casualty. We kept trying to move it every couple months to see if perhaps we could get together, but it looks like definitely in November 20th, we've got a date set up, so keep that going. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the bike summit that is being held by the League of American Bicyclists. I don't know if everybody knows, but our insurance comes through our insurance provider, and they also, the League of American Bicyclists is a great advocacy group, and being a member as a club member and maybe an individual member can help support all the work that they do, trying to advocate for bike safety and with the politicians. They also have the safe cycling class. There's other things that could go on, but the good news is that you can attend if you'd like. If you're interested, you can go online and check out the programs they have, and you can get some money off of the membership if you're not a member. So any questions about that, let me know. I can help you out. But that dates of that will be February 28th through March the 3rd. So that's all for that. One of the other things that we normally do at the end of the year when we have a banquet is we give a couple awards away. Is that okay to do that now, Scott? So the two awards that we give are the Service Before Self and the And we also give a community grant out from the proceeds that we have from our Three Creek Century. This year, we did make some money, and we usually give out a couple different grants, but because we didn't have that much, well, we didn't have as much as we usually do, we decided just to choose one provider. And we did give Ross from Recycle Bicycle some money for the proceeds. So we have a little clip on that. Say, roll him, Scott.
Hello, I'm Dick Norford, PR chairman for the Harrisburg Bicycle Club. Since we can't be together, we've decided to do a series of small videos, short, quick videos with some very, very deserving information, and tonight will be some very interesting people. So for the first presentation this evening, Susan Tussey, President, Harrisburg Bicycle Club.
So tonight I'm going to present the Service Before Self Award that we present usually at the banquet, but this year because of COVID, we were unable to do that. One of the things that we do in the fall at the banquet is to give the Service Before Self Award. And since we didn't have the banquet, we're going to do it now. And our recipient this year is Marilyn Chastek. Marilyn has been in the club since 2006. She served as president, but specifically in the last year, she helped the Three Creek Century become a success, even though we had COVID restrictions. She figured out a way that we could do virtual, and it turned out to be a success when we thought we were going to not be able to have it, number one, and number two, we were probably going to lose some money, but we actually had a nice profit this year. So I have so for Marilyn, we have a plaque saying her accomplishments. And we'd like to thank her very much for what she's done for us this year in Harrisburg Bicycle Club. And congratulations, Marilyn.
Oh, thank you very much, Susan. I'm not sure I'm the most deserving. There are many people who make the club as such a wonderful organization that it is. So thank you.
Okay, well.
As you can see behind me, we're at Recycle Bicycle Harrisburg. One of the benefits from the Three Creek Century is that we support and turn some of the profit that we make from the Three Creek Century back to the community. So Susan Tussey is here, and she has a few things to say, and then I think she has a presentation.
Tonight, because one of the proceeds of the Three Creek Century is a community grant or community support, and we are using this year's proceeds to give to Recycle Bicycle. So I'm here with Ross Willard and Marilyn Chastek, who is the chairman of the Three Creek Century. And Ross, we hope you can use this.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Marilyn. We here at Recycle Bicycle are pleased to help others less fortunate get bicycles, and the Bicycle Club, named the Harrisburg Bicycle Club, helps us tremendously in furthering our cause. We are in the center of the city where the need is the greatest. In addition to that, we also ship bikes around the world. So thank you for your support.
Okay, so congratulations to Marilyn and to Ross. I do want to clarify, though, I had the date wrong. Marilyn has actually been a member of the Bicycle Club since 1996. Okay, our next presentator is going to be Dick Norford. Dick had another meeting. Are you here yet? I don't hear anything from Dick. I'll give him a couple more minutes. Okay, Dick is not here. I see. So I think I can actually maybe fill you in on what Dick wanted to talk about, because I don't know that he's going to be able to make it on time. So Dick is in charge of public relations, and under public relations falls social media. And you probably have noticed that we have a Harrisburg Bicycle Club group, and we have a Harrisburg Bicycle Club page. The page is the the one that is for everyone to see, the general public, but the club page, which is only open to club members, is the page. So the group, the page, I know that's really confusing, and I'm getting everyone confused right now too. But we want to make sure that social media is going to support the website. It doesn't replace the website. So we like people to please go and hang out at the website and give us some feedback on that, what you're seeing, what you like, what you don't like, and that's going to help us be able to make it more user friendly. One of the things that we decided to do is a community project, and we're going to do a road cleanup on Industrial Road in conjunction with Wildwood, and just to let you know that we also do a road cleanup over in Mechanicsburg area with the Texaco Road, and I think that's way over 10 years, maybe 15 years. That's very much run by Tim Hohen and Cindy Hohen, and they faithfully clean that up twice a year. And so it came out to request that we do something on Industrial Road, which actually hasn't been having a good cleanup for a very, very long time. So on March 13th, we're going to get together. You can sign up with Wildwood, and I'll get more information to you on that, because I'm not really quite sure how that works, but they will supply everything. They'll supply the bags, the sticker picker-uppers, and then we'll just leave the bags sit along the road for PennDOT to come by and pick up. So it's kind of it's a Harrisburg State Road, but it's a road that we all use as bikelists if you're cycling over here on the East Shore. So, and we'll probably do also another cleanup day sometime in the fall. The helmet drive is on this year. It's going to be in May with Bike Month, and with the Tour de Belt is actually going to be virtual again this year as well, and that's going to start the 28th of May, and it's going to run through June the 6th. And I'm sure there will be information about that. And I'm guessing that they're going to be looking for Harrisburg Bicycle Club volunteers to participate like we did last year, maybe lead small groups. So, and that's kind of all I have to say about that. We have a picture of the board, and I want to introduce everyone on the board. So I think Scott has a picture he's going to put up there. We were in the midst of a meeting when this got snapped, so some of us maybe be looking a little occupied, but starting at the top is, and to the left is Scott Silverstein, and Glenn Wareham is on as our past president. Lou Searles is there. Howard Ross is there. There's myself, and there's Mark Reardon and Chris Wright. And the next person is Dick Norford. Down at the bottom, we have Howard Davison, Stephanie Eisman, our new secretary, who's fantastic, and Jill Bradley. So those are your board members. Please contact us if you have any questions or concerns. And that's about all that I have tonight. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to talk about? Or any questions? I didn't see anything come up. So if not, I apologize for the technical difficulties that happened earlier at the beginning of the meeting. I hope that those people who are waiting on the website actually got in. And if not, again, remind you the program is going to be taped. So that's all. Thank you for coming, and thank you for spending